Empire's assault on the Blue Palace.
Even before the launch of Star Wars Battlefront 2, Electronic Arts found itself under scrutiny for its handling of microtransactions and the loot crate system in the game. But now that it's available in stores, Battlefront 2 has continued to receive widespread attention and numerous reactionary updates from EA. To break down exactly what happened from the October beta to the current developments, here are the key elements explaining the controversy behind Star Wars Battlefront 2. As the sequel to 2015's Battlefront, which was criticised for lacking a single-player story and repetitive multiplayer offerings, Battlefront 2 features new modes and revisions to gameplay, including a single-player campaign. Originally, developer DICE stated that Battlefront 2 would receive free content updates instead of a season pass that players would periodically have to buy into. And part of those free updates were new story missions, maps, and hero characters, scheduled to release the same week The Last Jedi hits theaters. Despite the newly added story mode, Battlefront 2's primary focus is its online multiplayer. Here, players can advance in rank and acquire resources for their classes and favourite characters. Returning from the previous Battlefront is the Star Card system, which offers class and hero-focused amplifiers that increase stats and grant new abilities for progression in online modes. Greatly expanded in Battlefront 2, it's now a required part of long-term player growth. Star Cards are the most valuable tool you have to customize and augment your characters, adding increases to damage, health regeneration, along with alternate loadouts and skills. Each Star Card comes in 4 tiers of quality: common, uncommon, rare, and epic, with increasing stats for higher ranks. Moreover, amassing Star Cards for a particular class will increase its level, opening up better crafting options for higher tiered cards. While most multiplayer games feature systems that task the player with investing time in a particular class or set of equipment, Battlefront 2 mixes elements of steep progression with randomized rewards from dedicated crates. These randomized yields include additional Star Cards, weapons, cosmetics, and other resources. The Star Cards in particular are vital for increasing the level of your character, and with the dependence on the game's randomized yield for players to acquire the bulk of their resources, this makes both grinding and chance a necessary aspect of the Battlefront 2 experience. Leading up to Battlefront 2's open beta, the increased focus on the game-changing Star Cards led to a lot of concerns from fans and scrutiny for the game, all of which were wrapped up within the increasingly common mechanic known as the loot box. From the 6th of October to the 11th, EA opened up the game to feedback with access to an early beta version of the multiplayer. In the beta, players found that the loot boxes, which yield randomized materials and Star Cards for classes and hero characters, were one of the main pillars of player advancement. A common complaint voiced by those that played the beta was that the progression system felt designed to encourage players to purchase crates with real money to advance more quickly. EA's beta for Battlefront 2 would ultimately be a turning point for the game in the public eye. In Battlefront 2, Star Cards are in larger abundance compared to the 2015 game, and some cards offer simple yet incredibly effective upgrades. One of the larger criticisms from the beta was that the epic level Star Cards and weapons could be acquired from loot crates, making it possible to reach high level status early on by buying loot crates, or in other words, pay to win. After the beta, the developers took steps to alter aspects of the game based on player feedback. EA published a blog post about the state of the game. Citing player feedback, the developers adjusted areas of the progression system. In addition to increasing the rate at which credits are earned by a small amount, the biggest change EA applied to the game was removing epic level rewards from crates. Stating that it was done to help keep everyone on a level playing field, the developers transitioned epics to the in-game crafting system, which is currently the only way, aside from pre-order and deluxe edition bonuses, to acquire the highest tier Star Cards. Still, concerns about player progression being dependent on the randomized element of loot boxes remained. On November 10th, EA released a trial version of Star Wars Battlefront 2 on Xbox One and PC for members of EA Access. With a 10-hour time limit, users could experience the first 3 levels of the campaign and the full multiplayer experience, and all progress could carry over into the final game upon release. This was the first opportunity for many to dive into the final game, which the developers said they would always evolve with player feedback. Upon further play, however, some fans felt that the core mechanics of the game weren't effectively explained, leading many to feel frustration with the restrictions and requirements of the game's economy. On the Star Wars Battlefront 2 Reddit page, a user voiced frustration after taking advantage of one of the microtransaction options. Unbeknownst to the player, the crystals could not be used to purchase the various hero characters, which are only available to buy in the form of credits. This user wanted to purchase the Darth Vader hero, who at the time cost 60,000 credits. Within this same thread, an EA spokesperson responded to the post, stating the following: "The intent is to provide players with a sense of pride and accomplishment for unlocking different heroes. As for cost, we selected initial values based upon data from the open beta and other adjustments made to milestone rewards before launch. Among other things, we're looking at average per player credit earn rates on a daily basis, and we'll be making constant adjustments to ensure that players have challenges that are compelling, rewarding, and of course attainable via gameplay." This comment was inundated with negative reactions from fans, soon becoming the most disliked comment in Reddit's history with over 675,000 downvotes. Following the backlash from the post, the developers reduced prices for all hero characters by 75%. However, they also lowered the completion reward for the campaign from 20,000 credits to just 5,000. This was done to match the altered price to unlock the campaign hero Iden Versio. On November 13th, press reviews from gaming outlets went live. While many of the initial reviews stated that the core gameplay of Battlefront 2 was fun and exciting, and it offered a diverse array of content to go through, the multiplayer progression system was met with widespread criticism. With the game's dependence on loot crates, many claimed that the gameplay loop of Battlefront 2 just didn't value player time or investment in the game. After the reviews were out and more players began to dive into the game, Battlefront 2 found itself under greater scrutiny from the community and press alike. Eventually, even mainstream press sites such as CNN and the Huffington Post began to cover the game's focus on microtransactions and loot crates. This increased attention, along with consumer complaints, led to the Belgian Gaming Commission launching an investigation into Battlefront 2 and Overwatch for possible gambling practices. EA released a statement to GameSpot strongly denying such connections to gambling. Creating a fair and fun game experience is of critical importance to EA. The crate mechanics of Star Wars Battlefront 2 are not gambling. A player's ability to succeed in the game is not dependent on purchasing crates. Players can also earn crates through playing the game and not spending any money at all. Once obtained, players are always guaranteed to receive content that can be used in-game. Prior to Battlefront 2's official launch, crystals were exclusively used to purchase loot crates for additional rewards, circumventing the need for credits. While crystals can be acquired from certain challenges and milestones, the most immediate way to attain them was from the in-game store. The purchase options during early access and prior to launch ranged from $4.99 for 500 crystals to $99.99 for 12,000 crystals. This also opened up possibilities for players to take advantage of the premium options to obtain a larger quantity of star cards and resources over others, which fed back into player progression. But in the days since the beta, and even before its launch, general perception to how Battlefront 2 offered these paid options were unfavourable. Despite this, DICE developers expressed that these options were not pay to win, and that player progress would come down to player skill. DICE Associate Design Director Dennis Branval said, "You should not ever be match-made together with players who are much better than you are. Ultimately, your effectiveness is going to come down to skill, not the star cards you have." In light of accusations of gambling and overwhelming toxicity surrounding the game, EA CFO Blake Jorgensen made comments about the state of the game during a talk at the UBS Global Technology Conference on November 16th. In addition to commenting on the game, he stated that people need to be patient, as they looked for alternatives to address the community's concerns. So things that we've heard today will tune into the game and they'll be different tomorrow. Running a live service is all about constantly watching and listening to and reacting to the community to try and develop great gameplay. But also, players should really understand that we listen to the community very closely, and we will always be changing the games to make those games better and make the community more excited about playing those games. During a Reddit AMA leading up to the game's launch, DICE developers Dennis Branval and Paul Keslin spoke about the backlash toward the game and expressed that they were incredibly saddened by the overall response. Branval wrote, "We've made a really cool, fun and beautiful game, but it was overshadowed by issues with the progression system. We will fix this." Hours after the Reddit AMA with DICE developers, and shortly before the game's official launch, players suddenly found that microtransactions were pulled from the game without a preceding announcement. When selecting the Get More Crystals option from the Loot Crate menu, players will come to a blank screen where the option to buy crystal packs once was. Crystals are still obtainable in-game via milestones and challenges, but they require a large time investment to acquire. Soon after, EA released a statement announcing that all microtransactions would be pulled from the game until further notice. "We hear you loud and clear, so we're turning off all in-game purchases. We will now spend more time listening, adjusting, balancing, and tuning. This means that the option to purchase crystals in the game is now offline, and all progression will be earned through gameplay. The ability to purchase crystals in-game will become available at a later date, only after we've made changes to the game. We'll share more details as we work through this." As of the time of this video, Battlefront 2 is fully playable in all gameplay modes without microtransaction options. Developer DICE and publisher EA are currently working on a new system, and while crystals are no longer available to buy in packs at this time, the developers have stated that the currency will return after adjustments have been made. Whether the in-game purchases will remain the same or will be modified to offer different rewards remains to be seen. With its next batch of content coming next month in time for The Last Jedi, and with more content coming in the months ahead, the developers plan to support the game for the long term. But along with new modes and content, EA and DICE are now tasked with coming up with a new progression system. Be sure to check back with GameSpot for all future updates coming from the developers regarding the state of Battlefront 2.